In life, we must believe that things end, things end at the right time. Things end in due time. This time, it will be my time, yeah. In due time, in my time, I'm so glad that it's my time. I have an idea. I have an idea of what I am going to talk about today, but I think for the most part, for the filler area, for majority, I'm probably going to flap these gums, maybe. But what is up, you guys? Welcome to the BIYG podcast, Believe in Your Growth. I am your host, Stefan Simmons. Um, it's been a while. I'm realizing, and I've been known this, but I think I'm in a moment where I'm wrestling, I guess, with myself because there's being stagnant, and then there is evolving, and what one word that I have definitely tried to incorporate or even just latch on to is initiative. And so I want to take the initiative, but I also don't want to ignore capacity because I think the capacity which you have is very important. I've been really coming to the understanding of how overloaded or how overwhelming a lot of the areas of my life are. And I mean, we can say that about anyone, but I think trying to do so much by yourself can be overwhelming. And from every aspect, whether, I mean, spiritual, financial, whatever pursuit you're partaking of, because that also, I guess, feeds these emotions and these feelings and whatever you may undergo, it just kind of feeds that being tired kind of situation or expending so much energy into that you're just kind of drained. And I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to honor capacity, but yet and still take the initiative because I don't want to sit here and look back and think in 5 years, I guess have the what ifs or the regrets or even have this, oh, I know I could have and I didn't. I just don't want that. So I don't really think it has to be healthy. This is where initiative comes in, and it's not about striving. I don't aim to strive. I don't want to strive. I think you get nothing really good from striving except trying to save and preserve your own life, which I think there is a part of that is our responsibility. And you ought to do everything you can do to live a fruitful, healthful, full life. But in the end, I don't know, enjoy yourself. And it's like every man gets to make their own decisions because no matter what I say, I think there's a nuance to everything. There's nuance, and no one is gonna come out of this existence unscathed or having done everything perfectly. And I don't think that's just, I mean, perfection is never, I think, a part of my reality. Um, that's another thing. I may not talk about it today, but I'll hint at it or mention it. I don't care about perfection. I care about purity. I think a person that tries is a whole lot different from a person who has gone 10 years and they know they have this issue, but they're not trying to fix it. That's where, to me, and I mean, someone may say, well, how does purity play into that? Well, I think because purity is about light, and to me, it's about intention and a lot of other things, but light and dark, it's like light. Okay, how do I explain this? Because it's something that I've really just taken a hold of, not lately, but especially over the last 2 years. Um, it's like being honest with yourself, right? Um, where that honesty is, darkness can't remain, because that brings a light into the situation. It's like saying, let's say, okay, I know that I may be going through this moment and I have this illness or I have this whatever, right? you're acknowledging it. That's not accepting defeat. That is acknowledgement. Because the reality of a matter is you have to be walking in the light and you have to be light. And deception and light, they don't work well together. You cannot deceive yourself or act ignorant of a thing when you know something is happening. You need to acknowledge it. And then, from my perspective as a believer, once I've acknowledged it, now I have the responsibility of giving it over to God. And so, but I think going even before you give it to God, walking in light, walking in that level of honesty, that purity, where no, I may not be perfect, but these are the things that are happening, and what steps and what motions am I taking to actually correct it, or I guess erect the kind of life that God wants for me, that I want for me, that should be lived. And so, again, I told you I'm going to be flapping my gums because at this point, there's just a lot that I've experienced. I think in the last, I don't know when was the last episode, but there's a lot that I've experienced. I may put this one up on Spotify. So, I don't know. It may be one of one because yes. Because yes, life is beautiful. My thought process on that still has not changed. Life is very long. I think when you are doing what is in your heart to do, and you're not letting people feed you ideas, and you're not letting people take your innocence and push it or make it become what they want it to be. Um I think because, like, even my innocent nature, I'll say this, it's easy for me to have an idea, but then you hear someone else's idea, and because they mean well, and because you have an innocent heart, maybe you follow their path rather than having your stake in the ground and staying where you have set your intention, because there's a whole lot of nuance again behind that. But I guess for me, maybe it's people pleasing, maybe it's you want to hear people out, you want to see what they're talking about. And I mean, there's the risk and reward of everything in life. There's a risk of not listening to someone, there's a risk of listening to them, there's a reward that potentially can come from heeding to what they've communicated. There is a reward, I mean, on the other side. And so it's just making decisions and living the life that you want to live, right? And in the end, saying, I did everything that I could. And I mean, just being grateful, being happy, being accountable, being accountable and responsible for the decisions that you've made. And so I don't know how that plays a role into the fact of the matter that life is good and life is long. But to me, even with the days going by, I still feel that way. Life can be very long when you do what is in your heart to do, when you do what you love, when you do, I mean, really what God has simply just designed you to do. And you're not trying to overly complicate it, you know? I don't know, and just wrestle against your makeup, you know? Um, I don't know. There was something that came to mind while I was saying that, but it just drifted away. But yes, I think it's super important. I'm in a place now where I want I want community. I think I've shared this before. Growing up, I had some people and some instances and some things that made me look at not everyone, but look at people as though, there's evil in the world, and there's hateful people, and there's mean people. And there was a part of me that adopted this approach where it was like, I want to be alone. I want to be alone. People asking when you going to get a girlfriend and all this other stuff. And the lie that became, it was like a mix of a lie, but it was also a mix of the truth. But I didn't really understand what I was looking for. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted people who would respect me. I wanted people who would recognize me. And granted, I'm not saying that I did not have those people in certain areas of my life because it's like when they're sprinkled throughout, it gets hard to recognize the sprinkles when I guess it's more stuff is being added. If that I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just harder, And then I guess when you spend, let's say, you spend 40 hours a week somewhere around people who you may not like, who may not like you, or even if you have a few people sprinkled in that area of your life that may like you, but you're still surrounded by those who might look at you funny or they might whisper and the whispers might get back to you, all whatever, right? It just becomes, I want to be by myself because ultimately, when I was saying that, I didn't realize the truth of the matter. But number one, I guess I needed to heal. I needed to shed off a lot of the negative things that were being portrayed and projected onto me. But then in reality, there was a cry for love. There was a cry for, again, respect. There was a cry for acknowledgement. There was a cry for, I mean, all the things pertaining like parallel to that, parallel to those areas of life. And, I came to that realization, I think, a few years ago, maybe two or three. But yeah, I think that's what happens when your heart is broken. You develop and adopt a language that is not necessarily truthful, but it is gonna get you to the place it can um hopefully get you to a place where you understand, because that's I think where I am now, learning the language of how I'm feeling and even being able to communicate it, disregarding people's negligence of my discernment, if that makes sense. Because even now you'll have people who in this lifetime will make you question your intuition or what you think is happening, and it's like, I don't know, something ain't something ain't there, but I mean, at the end of the day, you just have to trust and you just have to know that God is with you and God wants to have an intentional relationship with you and wants to build a rapport with you. And so, I mean, you're not going to get everything right, but if you trust him, and I think even before you come to acknowledge who Jesus is, I think God is faithful, and God oftentimes tries to introduce himself first. So then he can introduce his son. And I don't know, but that's a whole nother thing that I'm probably not trying to get into. But I will be right back in like 2 seconds. Anywho, so um where are we at? Because this is going very left in compare I mean not comparison, but like in the scheme of what I had in mind today. In the thought process. I Let me wrap that last thought up, that last whole moment. But yes, just being honest and recognizing that there is language for how I feel. It doesn't have to be communicated perfectly. It just needs to be acknowledged. Um, Even if there's a deeper feeling than hurt. Maybe you're disappointed, right? But you don't know you're disappointed. I feel it's important to say to God what you think you feel and to keep asking, cuz that's one thing I'm doing is definitely asking God to reveal to me, how I feel, because again, if I don't know the exact word, I'm just going to tell God I feel hurt. That's just it. If I know it doesn't feel good, I'm going to be like, God, I don't know what this is, but I didn't like that. And even if you don't know whatever, if it maybe it's not hurt, but you don't like it, I say that. I say that. And I let the understanding just simply reveal itself over time, because I do think going through some of the things that we can go through in life, um, not everyone, it can cause you to forget, I guess. You swallow some of these things because you start to feel like, oh, well, it's acceptable, it's normal. Maybe some of the things hurtful that we went through in life. And so you start to lose this emotional, I'm gonna say capacity, but the ability to, I guess, just be honest. Like be fully honest, because there's this faux reality like, oh well, this is just how things are, or no one's gonna care. Or even one of my things that I used to walk around with was people were not with hold on, how did it go? It was like not well, did I say everyone was gonna leave me? It was something along the lines of that. Like it's so foreign to me now. It's hard for me to even really say that, because I I can be honest and say I don't have a lot of close relationships today. But I know for a fact that there are over 8 billion people on this planet. There is someone somewhere, a group, a tribe, whatever they may be, that God has designed for me to be a helper for me, and vice versa. And so it's not the same posture. Like I can know right now that my relationships are not where I would like them to be, and it not be coming from the same position where I have no hope, or I have this disappointment, or whatever the case may have been because of what someone else did, or even the pattern of things that were transpiring at one moment in my life. But I mean, just learning how to communicate that, learning how to pinpoint what I feel, even again if it's not accurately, shedding light, bringing light into the situation, being honest with how I feel, first with myself and God, and then, I mean, especially if the relationship is good enough with others, you want to have such a solid foundation and a solid connection with people that you can actually say, this is how you made me feel, or this is what I'm feeling right now. And it not be for show, it not be, for theatrics, or, someone trying to, again, belittle your discernment or whatever the case may be. This is where we come together to actually understand one another, to receive one another, respect one another, walk and talk with one another. Like, it's just big to me. But again, all of that is just, I don't know if it made sense. I pray it did. But that's just some of the things that I have been going through. And it's only a few areas. There's been a lot. There's been a lot. But life is unfolding, and I am going with the flow. I am being resourceful. I am being faithful in my stewardship. I am being trusting. Um, I'm being me, being me. And that's really all I've ever wanted to be. And it might not be the easiest thing, but I'm sure enough, sure enough, happy and proud of how, if a lot of areas of my life are not consistent, I'm proud of how consistent I have been there. And I mean, that just points back to what I was saying earlier about purity. I don't care about a lot of things, and I'm not talking, okay, I'm not going to go into that, I guess, but it's not about perfection. It is about intention. And though intentions do not erase impact, I'm talking about simply trying, and some things along the lines of that. But trying, and that even points into initiative, you know? I mean, I feel like a lot of the stuff I'm learning is it's intertwined. It's like it leads you, it opens one chapter and then leads into another chapter, and everything is linked. But again, off of that, because what I actually wanted to talk about, um, for those who may not know, I do garden from time to time. I'm gonna try to wrap this up in 10 minutes. I garden and at the beginning of this year, I was prepping to start my spring and summer crop and one plant in particular that I wanted to have again because I've had it for the last I think 3 years at this point. This is my 4th year was banana peppers. And you know, it just was not unfolding the way I would have liked. It was not happening. No germination, but I came to the realization potentially that I was harvesting the fruit too early, and so the seeds were not mature enough to be able to reproduce. And so maybe that's something for someone right there. I mean, because I feel some I heard something in that, but yes, that's something that I realized that even like with cucumbers, I had to learn you gotta let the cucumber turn yellow. And once it kind of turns yellow, then at that point, more than likely the seeds within it have fully developed. And so that's where I think the problem was. I had some seeds that I was collecting and I thought they were properly developed, but they weren't. And so I planted those seeds and, I kept trying, and, you know, to no avail. I just was like, whatever, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I stayed prayerful and I also stayed realistic. I stayed prayerful and realistic and was like, well, Lord, whatever you allow to happen, you allow. I did my part and they didn't come through, and that's okay. And so we just move on, and whenever the time is right, I'll be able to get some more or whatever. So lo and behold, the year before, I this is the second year that I had my banana pepper plant because I had overwintered it before from the year before. And so I had let a few banana peppers ripen on the plant. I wouldn't call it a vine, but I've let them ripen on the plant, and I think at some point one of them fell into the pot. Okay. Now I didn't remember that. I whatever, it was what it was because I just thought, well, I just maybe won't have no banana peppers this year. And it was like maybe I think 2 weeks after I stopped trying or whatever, I went outside and I took a picture of it and I saw one little thing come up, one little seedling. And that one moment, because I even professed it right then and there, I was like, God, thank you. This really just made my year. And I mean, it doesn't take a lot to make me happy. It really doesn't. But I think it's like the things that I want when that happens. And I think a lot of people are like this. Like, we can do things for people, and yeah, it be what we think they need or what we think they should want or what we want to do for them. But it oftentimes pays to know what a person really genuinely wants and what they desire. And I was desiring that. I mean, I like banana peppers, I put in the work. It wasn't that I was asking for a miracle. I was willing to partner with God in, growing more banana peppers. And so I just found that a blessing, even though it's natural. I think we don't understand how supernatural works because those seeds, I mean, they could have been dormant or they could have been negligible also, but they came through. Because I'm getting ahead of myself, one came through. And so, like I said to God, I was like, Lord, this really just made my year. And, you know, I took my picture and I went on and I tried to care for it. And then over time, more started to come up. And so that's when I realized that one of the peppers had fell in the pot, which is still a good thing, which is still a good thing.
But it was through that I began to realize or feel as if though the work that you've put in the past season is going to begin to work for you today. And so, I don't really know if when that's for, if that was for me or whatever, but that was something that I felt as I literally saw this happening, you know. Um and it's something that I hold on to. I mean, especially when God gives me moments one on one. And I believe that no, it's not just for me because as I'm enjoying the fruit of my banana peppers now, I felt like, okay, now's the time to share this with other people. And because I think we oftentimes we underestimate the movements of God and the compassion and the love and the generosity and all of these things that God allow to happen, these things that God bless us with, give us favor to experience. Because if it's not a car, some people may not care. If it's not a house, some people may not care. If it's, not a baby, some people may not care, you know. But it was for me one seedling that really brought me happiness. And now, I was able to give one away. I have three more. Well, I have five actually. Because like I said, you know, after a while, other seedlings came up in that one spot. And so I realized a banana pepper plant fell in there. And so, you know, I don't want to brush over the what you've done in the past is going to begin to work for you today. But I just the blessing of me being able to give someone a banana pepper plant, and even as God is unfolding, I guess the thing that he's doing in their life literally through the plant itself, it's like God has a purpose for everything. And I think I need to tell her this story actually. I think I did. I think I did. I don't know. But it just even then, as we had an interaction last Sunday, um, it reminded me that God does order our footsteps. And I may not have this old mystical and spooky way of saying, or you know how some people like God told me this and God said this. I don't have that, and I wanted to start correcting that because I do have it. It's just it became so innate for me that being was more important than the performance of it. And so understanding like God does speak to us. And I mean, to make it personal, God does speak to me. And I think God wants me and us to realize that He is speaking. And sometimes it's not going to be this loud thing. Sometimes it's going to be through one desire that eventually is going to minister to somebody else because it's Him. It's like who would have thought that from one okay, one desire for a seed, a plant, would then produce, the effort, the initiative to bring it about. And then the experience and the faith, even throughout the hardship of it not coming to pass, that God would allow last season's work to bring forth a new crop or a new thing today. And then that new thing would then bring forth a generosity or even another desire to share such a love that God had blessed me with, and this hope, this experience, right? To share that with someone else. And then that hope and experience would minister and then help with reality, real life um situations, whether it's issues or blessing, that it would actually do something fruitful. Like you don't think from the moment you have a desire to the moment of I mean from beginning to the end. We don't get to see that, right? I mean God knows us. God can see what is within us. And I do believe God can see that I love to give. I want to give. I don't want to just be blessed and not bless other people. But in the end, I just find that so. Oh, well, 10 minutes done passed. But I don't. It just it warmed my heart even from the very beginning, from the one seed, and now I guess to sit back and fathom, you know, what it has done for me and what it is doing for someone else. And that's just the blessing in itself. And so, um, I do really want to wrap it up because I want to start doing shorter episodes so I can actually put this stuff up on Spotify and all these other places. But I mean, I don't know. I just my spirit is in awe, right now, and I'm so happy to have my banana pepper plants. I just I wanted it, and I was putting in the work. And I know I'm probably about to be loquacious. I just learned that new word. I'm going back to being a student, y'all. I'm learning stuff so that I can keep my mind um active, But yeah, I don't know. I love that for me. I love that for me to had experienced the fact of the matter that God cared enough to allow that to happen, that it was his will for it to happen. And then coming from what was it, March and April all the way to now, we're about to be in August and realizing simple desires that God places in our heart. And we should know well, for those of us, I don't know if that's going to be the proper way to say that either, but his will is in his word. I just saw that something I think earlier or yesterday. But I do agree. Um his will is in his word, and you know, we shouldn't have to wrestle hard to find the will of God. And I mean, this is why we're also encouraged to inquire the Lord about everything. Um because even now I'm wrestling with the Lord a little bit on understanding, like, do whatever as long as it does not um how do you say, it does not I'm trying to think of the word. It's not combat, but as long as it does not go against the obedience, you know, do everything unto the glory of God, But we obviously know you cannot do sinful things unto the glory of God. So even in your work, you could be a janitor, right? But I want to use this. I want to use this. If God told you to start um going to a certain place or doing a certain thing, and now you being a janitor is getting in the way of you doing what God asked you to do, that's where disobedience is coming in. And so now that's when you know you're not in the will of God. So it really does take calculated risk, but it also takes trusting obedience. It takes trusting obedience and not being so thirsty for everything in life, being content, being happy, trusting the doors that God opens, and being honest about what door you want open. Last thing I'll share, maybe I shared this and maybe I didn't, but I was being honest with God again because we live in a world where people influence you, even your innocence. They'll make you think you want this when you really don't. We look at other people's lives and we say, "Oh, that's not enough," or yeah, and really, who are we to tell somebody what is enough and what isn't regarding their life? Some people may like simplicity. Some people may like complex. And, I think the person who likes a complex life, you're making it harder on yourself. The Bible, even in Proverbs, talks about, just being, it's not the sake of being, um, lack of a better word, simple because you're afraid or because you can't have more in life, but it's the fact of being simple because why do you need all of these things? What is the purpose of needing or wanting? Because there's a difference between your needs and your want. Why do you want all of these things? But that's a whole nother conversation. I just I don't know. I'm a very simple person. And again, when I got that banana pepper plant, I mean, really, it made my year, and I'm not to say that there aren't some things that haven't been trying me, this year, and they've probably been trying us. But I look back and it's like, well, God, you were there then and you're going to be here now. So, yeah. I need to wrap it up. So, hopefully, prayerfully, I said something that was helpful, that was encouraging, influential, uplifting, something that could help us overcome, you know, um, because really there's a lot to go over, and I won't be able to cover everything. Yeah, I'd have to be probably 10,000 years old to actually cover every little topic, and I probably still wouldn't even get it by that point. But whatever. Remember to stay positive. Keep it with you, spread it wherever you go. My name is Stefan, if you didn't know. With all that being said, love yourselves and love others. I don't know. Well, mm, yes, love yourselves and love others. Bye. Love you.